"Sorry, this table's for family only," my sister smirked, pointing toward a fold-out chair by the trash can. Everyone laughed as I sat alone. Then the bill arrived, $4,800. The waiter looked at me. I just smiled and said, "Not my table." I, 32M, never thought my sister's wedding would be the day I finally cut ties with my family. But sometimes life has a funny way of forcing your hand. The venue was everything you'd expect from someone marrying into old money. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and enough flowers to stock a florist for a month. I'd driven 6 hours to be there, wearing the only decent suit I owned, carrying a gift that had cost me 2 weeks of overtime pay. My sister had always been the golden child, but I figured blood was blood. The cocktail hour went smoothly enough. I mingled, made small talk with relatives I hadn't seen in years, and tried to ignore the subtle looks when people asked what I did for work. Being a mechanic doesn't exactly impress the country club crowd, but I'd learned to roll with it. Then came dinner seating. I watched families file into the reception hall, everyone checking their phones for table assignments. Mine wasn't coming through, so I approached my sister near the head table. She was radiant in her designer gown, surrounded by her new in-laws who looked like they'd stepped out of a yacht catalog. I asked her about my table assignment, and that's when her expression shifted. The warm smile she'd been wearing all day turned cold, almost predatory. She told me there had been a mix-up with the seating chart, then pointed toward the back corner of the room where a single folding chair sat next to the service station, basically where the waitstaff dumped dirty dishes. My stomach dropped as she explained that the table was for family only, gesturing toward the elegant round table where my parents, aunts, uncles, and cousins were already seated. The fold-out chair by the trash cans was apparently where I belonged. The worst part wasn't the humiliation, it was the laughter. My own family, people who'd known me since birth, actually laughed as I stood there processing what was happening. My mother avoided eye contact. My father shrugged like it was no big deal. My cousins whispered among themselves, clearly entertained by the spectacle. I felt my face burn as I walked to that folding chair, every step echoing in my head. The service station reeked of leftover food and cleaning chemicals. Waiters brushed past me constantly, carrying trays and muttering apologies. I sat there for 3 hours, watching my family enjoy their 5-course meal while I picked at a sad plate of cold appetizers a sympathetic server had brought me. During the speeches, my sister talked about family being everything, about how grateful she was for all the love and support. She looked right at me when she said it, and I swear I saw her smirk. That's when I started paying attention to other things, like how my sister kept checking her phone nervously, how her new husband looked increasingly uncomfortable as the night wore on, how the wedding planner kept whispering urgently to various vendors. The pieces clicked together during the cake cutting. I overheard the wedding planner on her phone, frantically explaining to someone that the payment had been declined. Apparently, my sister's future in-laws had promised to cover the wedding costs, but their check had bounced that afternoon. The venue was threatening to shut everything down unless someone could guarantee payment immediately. My sister was in full panic mode, trying to maintain her composure while her perfect wedding crumbled behind the scenes. Her new husband was on his phone with his parents, who were apparently dealing with some kind of financial crisis that had frozen their accounts. Then the waiter appeared at my pathetic corner table with the bill. $4,800 for the reception, plus gratuity. He explained that since the original payment method had failed, they needed an alternative immediately, or they'd have to ask all the guests to leave. The waiter looked at me expectantly, probably assuming I was just another family member who could help sort this out. The entire room had gone quiet. Word was spreading that something was wrong. My sister was crying now, her makeup running as she realized her fairy tale wedding was about to become a nightmare. I looked at that bill, then at my family sitting at their exclusive table, then at my sister who was staring at me with desperate, pleading eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Instead, I smiled at the waiter and told him this wasn't my table, so it wasn't my problem. The silence that followed was deafening. My sister's face went from desperate to horrified as she realized what I meant. The waiter looked confused, glancing between me and the family table where everyone was suddenly very interested in their dessert plates. I stood up from my folding chair, straightened my cheap suit, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear my sister calling my name, her voice cracking with panic. The wedding planner was now openly arguing with the venue manager. Guests were starting to murmur and look around nervously. My mother finally found her voice and called after me, asking where I was going. I turned back one last time and told her I was going home, since I apparently wasn't family anyway. The drive home was the longest 6 hours of my life, but also the most liberating. My phone buzzed constantly, calls from my parents, my sister, even some cousins. I let them all go to voicemail. Update 1. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. By the next morning, my voicemail was full of increasingly frantic messages. My sister's wedding had indeed been shut down after the appetizer course. Guests had been asked to leave, and the whole thing had devolved into chaos. My parents called me selfish and cruel, saying I'd ruined my sister's special day over a seating arrangement. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't help family in their time of need. The irony was apparently lost on them. My sister left a sobbing voicemail explaining that she'd only put me at the back table because her new in-laws were particular about appearances, and she didn't want them to think less of our family. She begged me to call her back, saying she'd make it up to me. But the most interesting call came from my uncle, my father's brother, who'd been at the family table. He told me that after I left, the family had spent an hour arguing about who should pay the bill. Everyone had an excuse. My parents claimed they'd already spent too much on their outfits and travel. My other relatives said they hadn't budgeted for unexpected expenses. In the end, my sister and her new husband had to call his parents' financial advisor, who managed to arrange an emergency transfer that wouldn't clear until Monday. The venue agreed to let them leave, but banned them from ever returning. The vendors were furious, and several threatened to post about the experience on social media. My uncle also mentioned something that made my blood boil. Apparently, the seating arrangement hadn't been a last-minute mix-up at all. My sister had planned it weeks in advance, specifically to keep me away from the important guests. She'd even joked about it to my cousins, calling it her way of managing the family image. Update 2. 3 weeks later, the real consequences started showing. My sister's marriage was already strained. Her new husband was furious about the wedding disaster and blamed her poor planning. His family was reconsidering their relationship with our family entirely, especially after learning how they'd treated me. My parents tried to play mediator, inviting me to Sunday dinner to work things out. I declined. They couldn't understand why I was being so stubborn over what they kept calling a simple misunderstanding. The breaking point came when my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. She let herself in using the spare key I'd given her years ago for emergencies and started lecturing me about family loyalty. She said I was being petty and that I needed to apologize to my sister for embarrassing her. I listened to her entire speech, then calmly asked her to leave and never come back. When she refused, I called the police and reported a trespassing incident. She left in tears, but not before telling me I was no longer her son. That hurt more than I expected, but it also felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I'd spent 32 years trying to earn approval from people who saw me as an embarrassment. The wedding had just been the final, public confirmation of what I'd always known deep down. Update 3. 6 months have passed since the wedding disaster, and my life has never been better. I used the money I would have spent on family obligations to take a vacation to Colorado, my first real vacation in years. I started dating someone amazing who doesn't care that I work with my hands for a living. I even got promoted to shop supervisor. My sister tried reaching out through mutual friends, claiming she wanted to apologize and rebuild our relationship. I heard through the grapevine that her marriage was struggling badly, partly because of ongoing tension with her in-laws over the wedding incident. Apparently, they'd started questioning her character and judgment. The family has essentially split into camps. A few relatives have reached out privately to say they understood my position and felt bad about how things went down. Others have doubled down on supporting my sister, claiming I overreacted to a minor slight. My uncle, the one who called me after the wedding, has become an unexpected ally. He told me that watching the family's reaction that night had opened his eyes to some ugly truths about our family dynamics. He'd started setting his own boundaries with my parents and felt better for it. The most satisfying moment came last month when I ran into my sister at a grocery store. She looked tired and stressed, pushing a cart full of generic brands instead of the organic stuff she used to insist on. She tried to approach me, but I simply nodded politely and continued shopping. She called after me, asking if we could talk, saying she'd learned from her mistakes and wanted to make things right. I turned back and told her that some mistakes can't be fixed with words, especially when they reveal who someone really is underneath. As I walked away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years around my family: peace. I'd spent decades accepting scraps of respect and affection from people who should have loved me unconditionally. That folding chair by the trash cans had been the perfect metaphor for my place in their lives. Now I have my own table, and I get to decide who sits at it. The people in my life now value me for who I am, not despite it. My sister's wedding might have cost her $4,800 and a lot of relationships, but it gave me something priceless: the clarity to walk away from people who didn't deserve me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building a better life without the people who held you back. My family wanted to treat me like I didn't belong, so I gave them exactly what they wanted. The difference is, now I'm the one who's better off for it.